So I am bringing a message that you might hear along the lines on Mother's Day, but I wanted to bring it since the ladies are gone, gentlemen and children, to challenge us to love and honor our mothers. We can say, well, don't you do that in May every year? Yes, but you know, we can never get enough of honoring and serving our parents and understanding the importance that our mothers have, not only in the family, but also in the church. So I'd like to start by going to Exodus, the 20th chapter. Now, if you've got a bulletin and you want to look on the back, we're going to be looking at some points that you can fill out there. Exodus 20, verse 12. Very simple verse, but it has a lot of ramification for us to consider here. It says, honor your father and thy mother. And the idea in the Hebrew is it's not just your father and also your mother. It is they are equal parents in the sense of deserving honor and respect and obedience. So honor your father and your mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God gives you. So it's a great blessing for us to have mothers and fathers, and especially when they are living by the grace of God and teaching us how to live. We need that. It's unfortunate that the last couple of generations after World War II, we've, as parents, dropped the ball in teaching and leading our children to who their God is. You know, it's an interesting point. If you kept this, honor your father and mother, and of course Jesus said this is the first commandment with promise. If we honor our father and our mother, the last 5 commandments will make sense. We'll naturally want to do them, because if we honor our mother and our father, excuse me, we're not going to kill. If we honor our mom and dad, we're not going to commit adultery, because we're going to see an honorable mom and dad the way they love each other in their marriage. And they're not going to steal. We're not going to bear false witness. We're not going to lie to one another. So if we can keep that number 5, then our relationships with other people is going to make sense. It's going to naturally come out of a heart of honoring mom and dad, and if we honor them, we don't want to dishonor. So how do we do that? By treating others the way our parents taught us to. So I was thinking about that. It makes so much sense. In the same way, if we honor God and obey Him, He provides the priorities and how things can make sense if we honor Him. And the same, when we honor our mom and our dad, then we are going to treat people the way our parents have taught us to. So let's go to Proverbs 31. And while we're going to do that, I would like to take time after I go through my points, that I would like to spend a little time in prayer for our mothers, for our wives, that God will continue to bless and use them, and to bless them abundantly for being the hard workers they are at home. Like I say, this is kind of like a Mother's Day, but you know, since they're gone, we can kind of discuss and encourage one another to treat our wives and our mothers in an honorable way, honoring your father and mother. So let's go to Proverbs 31. A lot of us can probably remember a few of these off by heart, the different verses that we're going to go through. But if we recognize how much our mothers, like my wife, who has 3 children that she raised, homeschooling, she dedicated time every day, just like a lot of our other mothers in our church, who decided that they were going to put their careers second place because they wanted to honor God by raising up godly children. And that is what can turn this country around, is by having families that are going to have that dedication from their mothers. So, verse 10, Proverbs 31, who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. You know what I like? Another idea about this? When you've got a godly wife, a husband's never going to worry about if his wife is being faithful or not. And that is an awesome thing to have, brethren, in our day and age, where adultery is looked upon nonchalantly. not like before where it was honorable. Now, and there are cultures, even in my wife's culture down in El Salvador, where having an adulterous affair is considered part of the culture. And that's why I think when we've got a godly family and a godly mother and a godly wife, you don't have to worry about that taking place. And like that, her husband safely trusts in her. He doesn't have to worry. And that's important, I think, in our day and age. Verse 12, she will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. Can we get a picture here as we're starting to go into this? She doesn't sit and watch the soap operas 8 hours of the day. She is busy. It's important for her, and I think it's sad that the women's liberation movement has the idea that being at home and doing work from the house is not considered important. But it is. In order for a house to run good, it's important for a wife to realize, as a mother too, she has a very important role. In fact, according to the latest statistics from career.com, a mother should earn about $162,000 a year for all the work she does. Of course, we'd be bankrupt as husbands, but they would get a deserving salary for all the work that when you think about it, they teach our children, they clean the house. If you've got a garden, guess what they're doing? They're looking after the garden. There are so many things that they do besides just teaching the children. They provide us our meals. They can be teaching our children godly values while the father is away. There's so much that a mother does that maybe we take for granted, but it is amazing how much they do for us. So the idea here is the mother is working, and I believe it's because when you have a God-centered mother, God-centered wife, she's going to be moved by the Spirit of God to be dealing in issues like this. I know a friend of mine down in San Antonio, he had a lot of struggles because he said all his wife does is watch soap operas. And he said she lost the idea of her importance in serving God and serving the family, and now she was serving just herself. So if we get that picture, a godly woman is very selfless because she is serving her husband, serving her children. In fact, in one place in El Salvador, my wife was talking about, a lot of the women would not have a lot to eat because they would feed their husbands, feed their children, and whatever was left over, they got to eat. And I thought, whoa, that's a lot of dedication to a family. So let's go to verse 13. She works wool and flax and works willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is yet night, gives meat to her household and a portion to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. She girds her loins with strength and strengthens her arms. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her candle goes out not by night. She's busy. All the time she's busy doing something. She lays her hands to the spindle and her hands to hold the distaff. She stretches out her hand to the poor. Yes, she reaches forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow. For her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. And I always thought about that scarlet. That won't really want to keep you warm in the wintertime, but actually it means double garments. Keeps them warm. She makes herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits down among the elders in the land. She makes her fine linen and sells it and delivers girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she rejoices in time to come. She shall rejoice, in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is the law of kindness. She looks well to the ways of her household, and eats not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed. And I hope we do that today. When you go home, and your wife or your mother comes home, tell her how blessed you are to have her as a wife or a mother. Her husband also, and he praises her. Husbands, do we give our wives enough of a blessing to tell her how much she means to you? Many daughters have done virtuously, but you excel them all. Favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. You know, I have a feeling in the new kingdom, when God hands out rewards, there's going to be a lot of mothers that are going to be getting a lot extra, because they have a tough job to do, especially in our day and age. So, and you know what? Another thing we need to understand here, you know, the mother can look at this and say, I can't do all this. And I don't think God is expecting mothers or wives to do all that. It is just kind of a realistic picture. It's just like the idea we get in Galatians, the idea of the fruit of the Spirit. And it lists all the fruits of the Spirit. Well, you know what? Not everyone has them working at the same time. We're still attaining them, still working on them. And I think when it looks at this picture here, it's not, well, a husband going to do a check-off list with a wife and says, well, you missed on 13 and 14 and 15 and verses in Proverbs 31. That's not what God's trying to tell us. He's trying to give us an idea of a picture. And I don't expect any woman to be able to do all these things. But it just gives a general idea of a picture of what a godly woman looks like. And the most important idea here is that she is a woman of virtue, a woman of honor. And because God is important in her life. So I don't want to bring the idea that there's a checklist on Proverbs 31 that in order for a woman to receive praise, she has to do all these things. That's just kind of a general issue. So what I want to take is when you look at this list, you know they don't have a man's list like this in the Bible. And I think because a woman outdoes a man. What was that saying? A husband's work is what? From dawn to setting sun, but a woman's work is never done. You know, and it works. I remember that a lot of times when I'd go to sleep at night, and if the kids got sick, we'd kind of take turns, but she was always up at night to be able to look after the kids. So, you know, and we had mothers that did that for us too as well. So, we can take what our mothers and wives do around the house for granted, and I don't want us to do it. That's why I thought, you know what, they're not here today. Let's help them to feel welcome, help them to feel, not welcome, I'm thinking blessed. And that we want to thank them for what they do. Because there's a lot of times I'll be starting to take it easy and maybe reading a book, and there, boom, she's working, doing something else, doing something, always keeping busy. So I thank God for that, for our wives that we have. And as I had mentioned, over $160,000 a year for a wage because of the work they do. And you know, it's like this, women, wives and mothers, they're 24/7. If a husband gets sick, guess what she's doing? If the children get sick, she is busy. So, and that's why I thought, you know what, let's take this time out today. Let's don't just take for granted that our wives or our mothers know what they've done for us. So I would like to go into the children, if you'll take a look at your list there, and some of the things that you kids can do, and I hope you'll consider this. There are 5 things, and for the husbands you've got 7 things, so there's a little more you can do. So let's go for the children. And even if we had some younger kids and older, even when you're getting up in your teenage years, sons and daughters, here's something you can do for your mom. Number 1, communicate with her. Communicate with her. What do you mean by that? Don't just tell mom what was going on in college or school for the day or things. Talk to her. Mom, how was your day? Let her know that you care about how she's doing. How was your day? How are things? I appreciate it that you did this for me. Talk to her. Don't just think she knows. And you know, we are really in the generation of people who feel they're entitled. Well, I'm entitled to my parents doing this and this. And you know, we shouldn't be like that. I believe that a thankful people will be able to tell their parents how much they appreciate what they do for them. And especially since we're focusing on mothers and on wives, let's tell them. Just don't think they understand. Tell them, hey, I want to tell you how special you are. Because you know what? When our parents or our wife are in the grave, it's too late to tell them. So we need to tell them now how special they are. Share with them. You know, mothers love to hear their kids talking to them. Mom, I love you. I want you to know that. I don't take what you do for granted. I want you to know how special you are. Because they're not always going to be there. So let's try and do that while we do have time. Number 2, what can children do? Pray for your mom. That's important. Moms are not super moms. They're not this invisible and invincible person. They need prayer just as much as anyone else. So many times you think of mothers praying for their children. I don't know how many times when our kids got sick when they're young, boy, we were praying for them. Children, pray for your mom. God, bless my mother today. She's such a hard worker. I want you to bless her in awesome ways. Help her to know that we love and care for her. Ask God, intervene on her behalf. She needs prayer, a prayer's covering over her life as well. So lift her up in prayer. Even if you say, Mom, is there something I can pray for you for today? If she doesn't say anything, you pray for her anyway. Then you're honoring your mother in a good way. Number 3. This might be a problem area here. It says, help her with tasks. Ooh. Mom, sorry. I'm in the middle of this game here, and I'm just about to win. If you see that your mother's got too many irons in the fire and she's doing stuff, come out and help her and say, you know what, I'm going to leave my games for a minute here because Mom didn't ask, but I'm going to go help her. And you know what? Moms will appreciate if you just ask and say, no, and I'm fine, but they will feel special that you wanted to ask her to help. Don't think that she knows. Go help her. Because mothers will appreciate it. You know what? It does. It means a lot. So help her with her tasks around home. Mom, I see that you're doing, let me put the dishes away for you. You just go down and take it easy for a second. You know what you're telling your mom? I care for you. Don't just expect you this or that, or because I'm sure Paul and Kenneth growing up, and I myself growing up too, there was a lot more chores for us to do when we were younger than what they do nowadays. There's a lot more things. So let your mom know, hey, let me help you. Number 4. Now here's, and maybe a toughie one for you to think about too. Do something with her that she likes to do. Think about it this way. Kids, moms always come, you want to play a game? Well, I'll go play a game. Why don't we say to Mom, what is it that you'd like to do? Let me take time with you today and we'll do what you like to do. And if she says, let's go for a walk, go for a walk. Or if she just says, just sit down and talk to me while I'm doing some sewing. Whatever it is, let her know that you want to spend time with her because that's how important she is to you. So do something with her that she likes to do. Number 5. I kind of alluded this already, but number 5, praise her. Let her know you appreciate her. Don't just think she knows. Tell her, Mom, thank you for all that you do for us, and I want you to know that. Simple words of affection, either spoken or written, can really speak volumes. There are sometimes kids will even write a little poem. Roses are red, violets are blue, so-and-so special, but I love Mom too, or something. Just something to let her know how special she is. I know it's not a great poem, but the idea that's going on, let her know that you care. You know what? I have seen ladies who had old things from kids written, and they're in their 70s, in their 80s, in their Bible. They'll look at it and they get tears in their eyes because they think of the time when their kids did that for them. When you touch your mother's heart, you've touched her for life. So let's realize that. Saying I love you to Mom is not just for when you're a little child. If you're getting up you're in your teen years, give her a card. Bring her some flowers sometime. Let her know. Don't let these days, because you know what? When your parents are gone, you will go back and think, of all the times I could have done something for Mom and said something for her. And those times are gone. Do something. All right, now let's go to the husbands. You've got a longer list. Husbands, it's been proven, and I am not trying to get into your home and telling you how to live your life, but husbands, it's been proven that a husband gives a hug, an appropriate kiss. I said appropriate kiss. In front of your children have a healthier understanding of married life. You know, and it's unfortunate that we are living in a day and age where all children are hearing is moms and dads arguing and shouting at each other. Our children need to see husbands, that we love and care for our wives, and it makes an impression. And you're never too old to start giving your wife a kiss in the cheek and say, honey, for all the times. For all the times. Let's go to Ephesians 5:25-28 for a moment here for the husbands. Children, I want you to realize you've got a lot of opportunities you can let your mother know that you love and care for her. Don't let it happen when it's too late. Ephesians 5 verses 25-28. And I'm just taking a portion out of this whole chapter we could really focus on. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. What is he doing? Husbands, what we need to recognize here is my wife's life is more important than my own. That's what Jesus did. Your life is more important than mine. That's why he died on the cross. So what is he trying to tell us? I want to work at building you up as my wife, and if that means I have to deny some things I'd like to do to make you feel special, to take you out for dinner sometime, I'm going to do it. Verse 26, that he might sanctify, cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word. Husbands, we just talked about wives, about children. Husbands, you need to be praying for your wives daily. That is your responsibility before God. When you tell her, I do, you are telling God, Father in heaven, I'm going to look after what? Your daughter. Because God's daughter first, our wife second. We need to honor her, encourage her, and let her know. And you know, this is a lifelong work. And I'm not saying, you know, that we're going to get it right the first time, but we can work on this. So, let's continue. That he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. Husbands, let me take that here. We don't get a nitpick list for our wife. All right? You're not doing this for... I got a list for you what you're doing. And here's some things I'm not... You burnt the supper the other day. You didn't get my shirt all nice and white and starched clean. No, that's not what a husband's supposed to do. A husband builds up the wife by praising her. Honey, I'm so thankful for what you do for us. And let's don't wait before there's no time to do that anymore. So we're not looking for the blemishes that a wife has, because we've got our own set, men. What we are wanting to do is before God say, God, I'm going to honor your daughter by praising and encouraging and lifting up your daughter. Because that's who she belongs to first. Not to us, belongs to God first. And then verse 28. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loves his wife loves himself. And let me put it to you this way. He who loves God loves his wife. That's what we need to understand, brethren. It is not what one man dad has said. Yeah, if my wife respects me, I'll love her. Or if my wife does this, I'll love her. No, that's not what he's telling us here. Husbands are supposed to honor and love their wives. Did people love Jesus before he went to the cross? Did we seek after Jesus before we found him as our Savior? No. Was he still loving and caring for us? Do we not read in the scripture that a believing husband or a believing wife can, what's the word I'm thinking of here? They can raise up their people before God. That's what we ought to be doing for our wife. If, you know what? And the simple thought is here for us. And I need to practice that too. If I see that my wife isn't doing something so that I need to correct her, you know what? How about I go and talk to God about that first? Father in heaven, help me. I'm struggling this issue with my wife. Help me to maybe talk to her in a loving way so that I'm coming to her in love and not being nitpicky. My wife doesn't need to see a list from me. So let's go through the points we have here for husbands for their wives. Number one, I mentioned that already, is pray for her. You don't have to have eloquent words to talk to God about your wife. You just say, Father, my wife loves me so much and she cares for me and she has made me feel so awesome. I want her to have the same. I want her to know that I love and care for her. How can I help her? How can I lift her up? Show me, Father, that I can love my wife the way you want me to love your daughter. Number two, praise her publicly in front of the children. And you know what? It's easier to get, like I was saying, nitpicky with her. The children don't need to see that. Children need to see their husband honoring their mother by praising her and for the good things she's done. Honey, thank you for that meal that was good today. Thank you for making the bed. Thank you for doing the clothes. There's so much that they do. We honor her in front of our children. And then they get the idea, is this something that fathers do? And the wives and the girls being raised up to say, this is the way my husband should look like. So one was pray for her. Number two, praise her publicly in front of the children. Number three, put her second in your life right behind God, because God comes first. I got to this point when I was in Regina dealing with how do you handle a husband and wife issue? How do they grow together? And I always thought about a triangle. If you are a wife has one side and a woman and a husband, and they're both worried about their own careers, they're going to be parallel lines. You know why? One's worried about themselves, the other one's worried about themselves, and they're never going to get close together. But when you have a foundation and you are a husband and a wife and you're looking at God, you're going to be focused, and the more you're focusing together on God, the more you're going to come together as a husband and a wife. God will draw the husband and wife together more and more. And that's the way we need to be. God comes first, my wife comes second. Because if I love God first, He puts everything else into proper order. And He helps me to learn to love and honor my wife the way I need to. Number four, in the age of modern feminism, we need to learn, husbands, to be the leader in your home. Because a lot of times wives are looking for their husband to lead. And a lot of times we don't. Whatever, you go ask your mom. There's sometimes, and you know what, then our kids pick up on that. Mom's the boss. And then, so I can make mistakes. And not standing up where I need to be standing. Well, go, because women, it's been proven, find comfort knowing their husband is in charge. And I'm not saying they rule the house, but there are times when a husband needs to stand up and do things. So number one, we had pray for her. Please pray for her. Number two, praise her publicly. Three, put her life second right behind God, which means, you know what? God comes first. Your wife comes second, husband, and yours comes after. Yours does not come before. Number four, be a leader in your home. Number five, be a man of God. How do you do that? How do I become a man of God? Enough scripture tells me we need to be in the Word of God daily. Daily in the Word. Pray with your wife. And pray with your children. Let them know that my home is built upon God, and this is how. And I tell you, I love spending time with my kids and my wife. My wife and I, we have our own worship time, but we have time with our kids 2 other times during the day. That is part of our life. Honor God by being a man of God. And your wife, she needs to know that you are a man of God. God comes first. So many scriptures telling us what a man of God looks like. Find it. Take a look what it looks like. It's having the gifts of compassion and love and mercy for your wife. So number 6, and I've been alluding to this a lot and stating it, remember, husbands, she is God's daughter first. Not your wife, she's God's daughter first. And on the day of judgment, there's a lot of husbands that are going to be brought forth before God saying, why did you treat my daughter like this? Because that's what he's going to do. And that ought to be helping us to have a somber idea. Treat God's daughter special because she is. And when we can do that, God is honored too. And number 7, this one might surprise you. Husbands, we need to be staying in good health. A wife doesn't need to be worrying about her husband being in bad health. So husbands, there's one thing you can do about it. Honey, come on, supper's done, let's go for a walk. Do something physical keep yourself busy because the worst thing you can have for your wife doing is you've treated your health so horribly that later on all she's doing is looking after you because of what happened with your life. Stay in good health. Your wife is going to appreciate that later on, that she is not going to have the kids are gone, but now she has to put all her time on looking after the husband. So let's ask for that. Ask God for good health. Help me, God. I remember my grandma and grandpa. My grandpa was sick for about 20 or 30 years, kept having sickness all over. He wasn't feeling very good from time to time. And he went to your dad a lot of times for help for that. Well, he started feeling good in the 60s towards the 70s. And he said to his wife, he said, you've looked after me and nourished me all those years. And then she said, now it's time you start taking care of me. We need to be able to look after our bodies, gentlemen. We need to be in good health so that we can honor our wife and not be a problem later on in life. Now, I know people get sick and they have all things like that, but you know what? I think this would be a good thing for us to do. Stay in good health. And one way to do it easy, honey, let's go for a walk. And you know what? My wife tells me, I wish you would talk more. Guess what? When you're walking with her, you're going to be talking. Take that time out and say, honey, you know what? Forget about the TV, forget about this stuff. Let's go for a walk. I want to spend time with you. Oh, you want to earn change in your pocket. That's a good way to do it. Let her know that you love and care for her.